Good evening, members. On the 15th of August for the committee meeting, I'm the chairman, Councillor Carter, and I'll hand it over to the monitoring officer to announce the evacuation procedures. Thank you.
Thank you. The evacuation procedure is: in the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits. It's 4 down that side, and there are 1 over this side and 1 down at the far end. Then please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Just to note that public recording of the meeting is allowed. There is legislation that allows this. The public can film, record, use social media as a council meeting, but this must not disrupt the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of any members in the public gallery.
Thank you, Clive. Apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Alan Hewson and Councillor Evans. Have we got any more, please? Pardon?
Simon Olsen is absent.
Yeah, Simon Olsen. Thank you. Is that it? Any more? Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Have we got any persons of interest? No. No person of interest. Minutes. Item 3, minutes. There's no minutes concerned of this first meeting of the committee. So, everyone happy with that? Thank you. Item 4, minutes from the subcommittees. There's no minutes from the subcommittees on that. Everyone happy? Oh, it's quick. Item 5, licence performance report. For this report, I'll hand you over to Joe, who's the environmental health and licensing manager. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is the licensing performance report. It's brought to the 2 committees, and it's for the financial year April 23 to March 24. The report has performance figures for the preceding years for reference purposes. The same report is being brought to both the committees, and what I will do is run through some points pertinent to each of them, if that's okay. So what I will do to start with is just do an introduction, and then I'll go through some of the pertinent points. The purpose of the report is to keep members up to date with the work that the licensing team has carried out and the processing performance. In total for the year, 765 licences were dealt with in the period, and the average time to process the licences was 9.01 days. Licensing covers a large range of areas, and the main overreaching principles for all of those areas is public safety and welfare. The team in this period was made up of 1 full-time equivalent business compliance officer, and that post is split between 2 part-time officers, 1 licensing enforcement officer, 1 licensing technician. At the beginning of December 23, the then licensing enforcement officer left the council, which left us with a temporary contractor that was employed part-time until the post could be recruited to. We did have a successful recruitment process, and the new licensing enforcement officer is now in post, and he started the role in May of this year. So it's out of this period, but he has started the post. The areas covered by the team include taxis, alcohol, entertainment, gambling, premises, animal welfare, charity collections, small lotteries, invasive treatments, caravan camping, and houses in multiple occupation. So for the first committee, which is taxis, I will just point out, pull out some of the relevant information. So for taxis, there are currently 47 licensed drivers and 7 private hire operators. To update the committee on the appeal made by a driver whose licence was revoked by the licensing subcommittee last summer, a final hearing has been heard. It was held after March 2024, so outside of this period, but the subcommittee's decision was upheld by that appeal. So just to give you that information, even though it's outside of the report period. So yeah. And the time for processing a private hire vehicle has reduced to 1.97 days. And this is again, on the last 6-month report, we did report back that work was ongoing. So this is because we've now taken into account completion of the application, and the time starts from then, whereas we were counting it before a complete application was submitted previously, which was extending, out of the control of the team. It was extending the processing time. And animal welfare licenses is another one I'll just point out. Of note for this time, as well as the renewals and new registrations, 2 of our 3 dangerous wild animal licence premises were inspected for renewal, which involved a veterinary inspection as well as officer inspection in that period. And I'll point out invasive and non-invasive registrations as well. In this period, we had 22 new individual registrations for invasive treatments and 18 new invasive premise registrations, which is quite an increase to previous. Invasive treatments include any treatment where the skin is pierced, so it can include things from tattooing to acupuncture and microblading and other processes. Of relevance to both the committees is the licensing audit. So the licensing enforcement policy has been published and is now available online. A monthly report is now produced by the revenues team on debtors and is actioned and looked at by the team. A number of issues have been flagged to the software provider with regarding public access and the publication of public registers, and they are actioning that at the moment. So we haven't got to the bottom of it. We've been working with our IT and our IT performance team, and they have raised a number of issues that are now being looked at by the provider. And now that the new licensing enforcement officer is in post, the enforcement plan is being actioned, and we are developing that in line with our new starter as well. Private hire and Hackney policy is currently being reviewed. That is due for review in 2024. So the team are working on that one. Within the year being reported on, there were 3 licence hearings held in the year, and a 4th was withdrawn just prior to the subcommittee hearing. And also of relevance to the first committee's event safety and safety advisory groups, just to say that we have held a number of safety advisory groups this year on larger events that are happening within the borough. So it's a very quick scan through just to sort of maybe highlight some of the points. I would ask that the committee note the information in the report, but also ask if there are any questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Joe, for the report. Thank you. Can I have a proposer, please, in a second? Yeah, I can propose it. I propose the recommendation for the report. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Lumley to second it. Thank you. Now I will open the debate up. Sorry. Yes, Councillor.
You're opening the debate, are you? Good. I like a good debate.
Please give me a chance, please, Councillor. Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Now the chairman will open it for debate.
Oh, sorry.
Members, thank you.
I do beg your pardon.
Councillor Orlett, thank you.
Right, okay. And I read the report earlier today, and I thought it was an excellent report. In fact, both reports are really top rate, and they do reflect a great deal of good work by the officers in this department. It's really good stuff to read, and it was very easy to understand. But I've got a few questions, if I may. Is that all right, Chairman? Right, I think.
Just say, Councillor, one report, not both reports.
No,
Just
I understand.
One report on this committee, please.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
The difficulty is that the performance report straddles both committees, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, we're just dealing with this committee now, then we'll deal with the one later.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that's all I'm asking for this one. With the pavement licence, which is the area L in the report, isn't it? I just wanted to get some clarity because in the report it says, I think it says furniture, doesn't it? It refers to. Oh, right.
So it's not permanent street furniture. It is pavement licenses. It's for movable. So where cafes have tables and chairs. So it wouldn't be permanent benches in the high street. It is where a cafe puts outdoor seating. That's where it applies.
Buys it enormously for me. What about A boards?
Not included. So that would be highways.
That's
again.
only highways.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we don't get involved in that. That's good. Yeah, so that covers that question, which I sent in there. That's fine. With houses in multiple occupation, how does this actually work? Because I wasn't quite certain about that. And is there any cross-reference to planning and enforcement?
If a house, so again, it depends on the size of the property, and I would have to check because that would be an environmental health part. So obviously the licensing is processed by the licensing team. The inspections are carried out by environmental health. Now, at the moment, the licensing is the larger houses in multiple occupation. So that would potentially impact on planning. So it depends on the size of the property. We haven't got all that many licensed houses in multiple occupation in Melton, but we do liaise with planners if there are.
If somebody put in an application in this context, does that mean that the licensing staff, a bit like Heritage, can provide the planning team with comments, or is it the other way around?
So licensing, if all the conditions are met, then the license would be issued. So,
Yeah.
but a license wouldn't be issued until a whole range of paperwork has been submitted. There are inspections carried out as well. So it has to meet the housing
Right.
standards. So that's done by environmental health. But obviously, if it needs planning, then that would be forwarded through to planners.
Right. Okay. I've got that. That's very helpful for me. Paragraph 4.25, private hire and Hackney carriage policy review. It says in the table it's due 2024, and my question was, I can't remember this one. Has it happened? Is it underway, or is it yet to start?
It's underway.
It's
So
underway. Okay.
The gambling policy took precedent because we had to get that done
Yeah.
first.
And
So
that comes.
the gambling
that
The
comes to
gambling
this
policy is in the
committee.
next committee.
Can I just
Mm.
come in? Thanks, Carol. This has been mentioned in briefing. I have mentioned this about it, and it's coming up. This took more preference over the other one, so that is due later in the year. That says so. This gambling thing had to be priority over that one. So right. Good. Yeah. Thank you.
Right in my head.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
it will come to this committee, will it? Right. Okay. And then on to full council. Is that the route?
For the taxi policy, this committee can set it. For the gambling one and the alcohol licensing one, that has to go to full council.
Right.
That's a legal requirement
The
rather.
tax is all right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I just wanted to get this right in my own head. Right. That's okay. That's fine. That's all my questions that are relevant to this paper.
Any more questions, members? Councillor Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you hear me? Fine. I've always welcomed the reports on licensing since I've been a councillor since 2019, because they've been the first department that actually introduced outputs and inputs. They've said what they've done in the year, the volume, and it's surprising how much they do. And then there's low numbers of staff that deal with it. So I've always welcomed these reports every year. Thank you.
As chairman of on a report on let's get it right. This is page 135-1 on the report. It's stated that the report is every 6 months. on the report. I'd like, as a chair, if the committee agrees, to take it back to a year on the report, because I think it's too much pressure on the licensing and there's nothing. So I'd like to recommend if it goes to back to a year. Those.
Chair, you obviously the recommendations to note the report, but you can seek to move that seek to amend that recommendation to say and in future will receive reports on an annual basis instead. So that obviously you need the support of the members, but that's permissible for you to do so.
Do we vote on? Sorry, do we vote on this first then, Clive?
Well, you'd need, because you've moved the recommendation, so you're permitted to amend that yourself, but the seconder would have to agree to that amendment. Which is
Council.
And so if I say, because that's fine, because if it's amended, then that can be the question that's put to the vote. So just for clarification, that we note the information in the report, it would now read, note the information in the report and agree that the report is in future years is brought back every the performance report is brought back every 12 months. Yes. So sorry, if there's no other comments, questions by members, then you can proceed to the vote on that if you wish to do so.
Members, any more questions on that, please? Right. We'll go to the vote then, please. All in favor? 4. Sorry, this is 4. Oh.
Yeah.
So that's carried. Okay. Item 6, urgent business. I'll hand you over to the monitoring officer on this, Clive. Thank you, Clive.
Thank you, Chair. As indicated in the late report that's been circulated to all members, it's being proposed that the committee regularises its arrangements for making determinations. The reason for that is that the courts have said you need to be very specific with your arrangements for licensing decisions. So the view that I have, and I'd ask the chair to support me in, is that we need to ensure that certainty from this point onwards, and that the need for that certainty makes it a matter which is urgent and therefore should be considered. So if the chair first agrees that we can hear the report, then I'll go into more detail on this substance.
Would leave. I'm in agreement with it. As the members in agreement to hear a report. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Chair. As members will be aware, in the annual meeting of the council this year, some slightly different arrangements were made in relation to licensing committees compared to previously. And to summarise those, the council appointed this committee to deal with taxes and general licensing, and then established a licensing committee for alcohol and gambling matters because there's some specific provisions that apply to those. What the council also did was say that all the licensing functions go to those 2 committees accordingly, so they're split between the 2. Now, the members will be used to the process that we've had previously of generally making decisions on individual applications by way of subcommittees. And there's a number of reasons why that is effective. And one of those is because under certain legislation, some of these decisions have to be made within a set timescale. And it's easier to arrange subcommittee hearings consisting of 3 members compared to getting all the members together when you work into those very tight deadlines. So the first suggestion is that the committee would approve in principle that any combination of subcommittee can be appointed. I think I tried to do the maths on this, and if we wanted to list them all out, the report would have been about 20 pages because we've had to have said every single possible combination of members. So I think it's easier to say in principle that any subcommittee can be appointed of any of the members of this committee. The second part of the proposal is that when we have a matter which needs to have a decision made by members, that in the early stages of that process, when the applications have been made and representations have been put in by interested parties, that at that stage there's a discussion with the chair and or vice chair in his absence to decide for certain that we're happy there will be a subcommittee that hears that matter rather than a full committee, and then that the officers effectively just get on with that. If the chair's happy, they get on with making those arrangements, very similar to the previous process. But what we'll seek to do is be as flexible as we can to accommodate the needs of any particular application. So obviously we'll still be approaching all members for their availability, but we're seeking to make it as inclusive as we can to carry on transacting business quickly. And then the final part of the report goes into a little more detail on the substance of what this committee does. On this report, there's an appendix which contains the existing licensing committee functions and procedure rules, and the proposal is very simple in concept, but there would be a little bit of work to go into it. If you turn to what's now on page 93 of the papers, or on the handout that's been given, that sets out functions of the licensing committee. And for the purpose of this committee, those functions will now be those set out in paragraphs 1.1 through to 1.5, and then in 1.8 through to 1.10. Now, the proposal is just for ease within the Constitution that we simply have these listed as Part A, which applies to this committee, and Part B, which will apply to the other committee. But what is also a useful exercise while doing so is, I think, to review, just look through those delegations and just check that members have whether members have any comments or observations or questions regarding the delegations. And I think in summary, I think it's true to say that generally where applications have no issues, they are delegated to officers to make, because there are we grant them in any event. So to have a committee or subcommittee sit to go through what's effectively a formality is not really good use of people's time. And generally it's when there are difficulties, when perhaps there's a question as to whether a license should be granted, when members are involved and asked to make a decision. So the purpose of this part of the recommendation is to just confirm that members are happy, having reviewed what's in that, or paragraphs 1.1 to 1.5 and then 1.8 to 1.10 of that list, just to be satisfied that they're happy with those arrangements and that we'll continue to do so.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You've explained it very, very clearly, but it's who takes the original decision as to whether it needs to go to the subcommittee or not?
That will be based on where there's an issue. So just for example, if we look at 1.3, where there's a That relates to sex establishment applications. So if a representation or objection was received, that would the rules currently say that would come to a subcommittee meeting, and we've got those other similar provisions where we have, for example, in 1.8, where we are revoking licenses except for those urgent cases, or when we're considering revoking licenses, except very urgent cases where there's immediate risk to the public. So that's, again, that says that that would have to come to a subcommittee for a hearing. So that's established already, and it's just saying, are members happy with those limitations at present, or do they believe they should be set out in some slightly different way?
Are you happy with that, councillor, or do you want to come back?
No, I understand what you're saying. It's the question of who took the decision, but I can see what you're saying about it. I understand the answer, so I don't need to come back on it.
Just to add, sorry, apologies, Chair, that because those functions are all sat with this committee, it is within your remit if you think it's appropriate to look at them. And it may be that you're satisfied now, but you may want to review in the future. So it's not suggesting that you must do something. It's a matter of just making sure that you're happy with the arrangements, and that if there are any concerns, that we can address those.
Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Clive, for the paper. Are you content in respect of, it says that the quorum for the subcommittee shall be 3 throughout the meeting? What sometimes happens is 4 people turn up and you decide who's the 3's going to do it, right? And there have been times where I've gone home, but in case somebody went sick, I ought to remain, the 4th person ought to remain present. I mean, are you quite happy that that stays informally and not in writing? I mean, I don't have a particular view, I'm just raising it.
I think the practicalities of getting 4 members, asking 4 to come along, that makes sense, because obviously you can invite 3 people and something could go wrong, and for whatever reason that one of the members can't turn up. So having effectively a standby is useful. Once a hearing's commenced of any sort, that generally the rules of natural justice will mean that the same body will have to, so the same 3 people would have to stay. So I think that the practical arrangements are sensible and should continue, just to make sure we have enough members around. But we'll have to make sure that once we've got whichever 3 there may end up being on any particular occasion, obviously that they'll have to continue to hear the matter through to its conclusion.
Councillor Hawley, so sorry.
I'm okay with that. I'm just
Councillor Don,
asking
come
you
back,
whether it
yeah,
needs
sorry.
to be in writing or just carry on as we are. I'm okay to carry on as we are.
Councillor Hawley.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to get clear in my head. On this particular Appendix B, not all the items are relevant to this committee, some are to the other committee. Is that right?
The appendix that you have, they'll be identical. That, I think you're looking at the one for.
Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So same question.
Yeah.
They're all only relevant to this committee.
No, it's so if you work through them, it's paragraph 1.1 through to 1.5 are relevant to this committee, and 1.8 to 1.10 are relevant to this as well, and it's 6 and 7 that relate to the other committee.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they will be split up.
Okay. So
to reflect that, so they'll
clear.
be differently numbered.
So we're only deciding on the bits that are relevant to this committee, which is why I was looking at the same paper on the other. Right. The next question is this. Am I right in understanding that for each of these particular licenses, some public statement has been made as to this license is proposed, and are there any objections? Is that what's happening?
They can arise in various ways. Generally, for an application such as a private hire or hackney carriage license, the There isn't a consultation process as such. We don't go out to the public about that, but information may come to light in the application, for example, regarding convictions or driving history, etc., which question whether they're a fit and proper person. So that would be the trigger as to how they're considered. But for others, for example, sex establishments and more that relate to the other committee, but there will be a process of advertising which allows people to make representations, and that's the legal trigger where it says it has to go to a hearing.
Just trying to get my head round Councillor Adcock's point, so that apart from the taxi ones, which are pretty well grounded, as we understand it, these other ones, there'll be an element of publicity which could give rise to the objections and therefore would automatically send it to the committee rather than officer. Right. So right. Okay. So okay. Yeah. So if I apply for a taxi license and the officers don't see anything untoward, it would sort of be acceptable straight away, and there was no reason to refer it to the committee, would there?
No, because the presumption is that you would grant in those cases. So there would be little for the committee to do other than effectively rubber stamp a decision. So it's when there's a problem that's when the trigger would arise.
Chair, the other point is this: when the ones that are publicised, do local members receive notification of that publicity as well, because they might have an objection?
Apologies, I missed. So who you said who might make an objection? Sorry.
Let's go back to the sex shop. Let's say at Asfordby there's a proposal to set up a sex shop, right? Okay, so it's publicised on a lamppost or in the papers or something. Will the local members, Councillor Carter and Councillor Clay, be automatically notified as well, as we do with planning? Because they may want to object.
Yeah. I think Joanne Belcher might be a better placed to answer that in terms of process, because it's not reflected in the legislation expressly, but obviously we can have our own arrangements for some of the administration around those.
If I may try and help you there, certainly for things such as the sex shops or for alcohol licensing and that sort of things, we would contact the local ward councillors to let them know, just as a matter of course. But for perhaps for more simple things like an invasive treatment license, we probably wouldn't send that through to them, only on the major incidents. And obviously, if we thought that there was any contention, then that's when we'd bring it to you.
Hold on, councillor. If you're going to speak, can you use your mic, please? Thank you. Thank you. And if any more members got a say on it? Is that it? Councillor Lumley.
Thanks, Chair. Just on Councillor Ornett's question, which is really good. Just to, I guess it's to Simon Greensmith again. How far do objections from councillors actually go with influence-wise? I know I've been on the council a long time, but it's just if there was a real big objection, say the example Councillor gave about Asfordby Ward, could that actually stop that application? Thank you.
It wouldn't be able to stop it per se, but it would then trigger it going to a subcommittee for them to make a decision, and they would be treated like any member of the public who can also make a representation in relation to that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. I'll just clarification because I've got some planning issues recently in my ward. Just on another point, I was going to ask, and I can't remember what it was now. Yeah, are you able to give us a list of what items would go to the ward councillors and what not? I know you just mentioned some, but there could be some that could be deemed important to some and not to others. Thank you.
Certainly the ones that like for a new alcohol premises license or any new gambling license or sex establishment, we would definitely send those to the ward councillors. But as I said, for some of the more minor licenses like a tattoo parlour or a animal welfare license, that they wouldn't necessarily go unless we thought that there was some contention in the application.
Just coming as chair, we don't want to be seeing that the officers are telling all the members everything what comes into the council on a licensing bin. If it's an important and to the members, then that's when the licensing team will tell the members, ward members. But we don't want to be doing it on every application what comes into the council, or else they'll be mad out. So we've got to give them responsibility. Good. All right. Keep. Everybody, is that it, members? Everybody happy or? All right.
Formally need to propose the recommendations and have them seconded
Second.
if members.
Can I have a proposal? So I'll pose it as the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Atherton, thank you. All in, second, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Come on to any other business. Any councillors got any other business? Right, thank you, members. I'll close the meeting at 7:10. Thank you, members. We'll have 5 minutes comfort break, if that's okay, members. Thank you. Thank you, members. Good evening again. Welcome to the Licensing Committee, Alcohol and Gambling. Thank you. I'll hand you over to the Monitoring Officer again. Thank you.
Thank you. The emergency evacuation procedure, members will probably be aware, but if there is a need to leave the chamber for any reason, please use one of the 6 emergency exits around the side. So there's 4 down that side, 1 in the far corner and 1 to this side. Please assemble on the far side of the car park where officers will be there to assist you. And also just to note that legislation allows the public to film the meeting using social media, but they can't do so in a manner that's disruptive and should not film the public area if any members of the public are present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've got Councillor Hewson, Councillor Evans and Councillor Orson. Anybody else? No. Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest. Got anybody interest? Declarations? No declarations of interest. Thank you. Minutes of the subcommittees. There's no minutes to note on that from March. That's that. Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Principles of 2025-2028. Simon Greensmith to do the report. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair and members of the licensing.
Sorry.
There are no minutes from the previous meeting, but there are minutes of the subcommittee, aren't there, on the agenda? Yeah.
Sorry, my apologise.
I just want to say I think we should, in accepting the minutes, Chair, I think we should thank the members who sat on it.
Right. Thank you.
Because they're not here, are they? 2 of them.
Yeah, there's a new committee into it, so they was. I'd like to thank
and
them.
It was a difficult topic, and I thought it was very well done.
Yeah. Good. Right. I posed the minutes for the subcommittee on March the 4th. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Orlitt to second it. All in favour? Thank you. So that's carried. Thank you. Item 5. So it's, yeah, of course, Don Pritchett.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chair. Is there going to be a debriefing on the after the actual event involving possibly the subcommittee or yourself, Chair, and officers?
Before the meeting on a subcommittee, you mean?
The minutes related to?
I mean, it's something I think can be arranged for officers to update members. It's not really appropriate to do it in a public forum such as this, but there can be a debrief. I think that we can possibly arrange that.
Absolutely.
Chair, I think what we're talking about here is the minutes themselves. There's a resolved. There are sets of bullet points that are resolved, and 2 of the bullet points refer to future action, which includes the debrief so many weeks before the event takes place and so many weeks after the event. I think it's on page 9, and there's some other bits, some action to take, and I think that's been resolved, so that will happen, won't it? The officers will just do it.
Yeah, I think this is possibly mixing up the steps in the licence that are required for the engagement with the organiser rather than members. So.
Again, apologies if I not got it in front of me at the moment, but again, the debrief on the licence was for the Safety Advisory Group debrief. So we obviously, she says, hoping I'm talking the right one, you know, that the organisers have to engage with the Safety Advisory Group. Sorry. Yeah, no, fantastic. So the noise management plan subcommittee to consider. We meet with the event organisers. So the festival has a number of safety advisory group meetings that have to start at least 6 months prior to. So the engagement with the safety advisory group starts at least 6 months. That's the same for the large events. The noise plans and other plans have to be submitted to the appropriate safety advisory group members. So that might be highways, it might be environmental health for noise management. And we do debriefs for the safety advisory group. So for both festivals that we've had this year, we've had safety advisory group debriefs. We've also had a community engagement debrief, which for both of those we've engaged with representatives of the Vale Parish groups. So we've invited representatives, and also we invite the ward councillors for the event. So the ward councils where the event works or goes on. So those have all been done, and those will be done on an annual basis.
Sure whether Councillor Pritchett was referring to the members of the subcommittee who made the decision being debriefed on the event as well.
Was it whoever, the appropriate people that are doing the debrief to learn the lessons? That's just what I was asking. I just didn't want it dangling with us note in the minutes, but not knowing what was happening. That was all.
Is everybody clear on that? Or do you want any more clarification on it? Everybody happy? Right. I proposed the minutes then to be moved. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor to second it. All in favour? All in favour. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Item 5, Gambling Act 2005 Statement of Principles of 2025 to 28. Simon Greensmith to do the report. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Licensing Committee. I've brought before you a report requesting that you recommend the Statement of Principles in relation to the Gambling Act 2005 to go out to consultation process, and also to delegate authority to the Director of Growth and Regeneration in consultation with the portfolio holder for climate access and engagement to resolve any objections received and to implement the updated Statement of Principles. The Gambling Act 2005 states that the Statement of Principles should be reviewed every 3 years, and the Melton Borough Council Statement of Principles is due for renewal in January 2025. Normally, the Gambling Commission provides guidance with regards to updating the Statement of Principles with the latest thoughts on gambling. The Gambling Commission has been consulting on remote gambling and software technical standards, and the guidance has been postponed until the report has been published. This has meant that the licensing authorities around the country have had to refresh their Statement of Principles with a light touch, and will look again at the guidance when the report has been published. I have updated the Statement of Principles, giving the latest census information available, amended the list of consultees, and included a paragraph about Public Health Leicester, who are now taking a keen interest in problem gambling and associated health issues with the Gambling Harm Needs Assessment. So if you agree with the revised Statement of Principles, it will put out for public consultation from 29th of August 2025, and it will be advertised in the local press, along with links being sent to the responsible authorities, operators, businesses and other interested parties. Once we've had the results of the consultation, it will be, if there are any items that can be dealt with by the Director of Growth and Regeneration, it will be dealt with there. If there were any major concerns, it will be brought back to this committee. Once that has been sorted out, hopefully, we will then take it to full council for their approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Simon. Right, I'll open it. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? I'll propose it. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Atherton. Thank you. All in favour? Yeah, I'm going on to the papers. What the paper says. I opened it for debate. Councillor Hawlett.
It's not a debating point. It's just a question of clarification. When Simon was speaking, you mentioned the phrase portfolio holder, and I'm sorry, I can't quite hear in this audio system very well. Was that a reference to something that we used to do or something we are going to do? Because I can't see that in the recommendation, but you actually specifically said portfolio holder.
I said portfolio holder for climate access and engagement. It's in the main report in the recommendations. It's actually in the recommendations, not actually in the statement of principles. In the actual report to the committee.
I'm sorry, I can't see it in the recommendation. It may be in the report, but I can't.
Page 14.
Yeah, my recommendations appear on page 12. Am I?
You got the right papers.
Yeah, I've got the new. Yeah.
It is, yes, page 12. Sorry, at the top.
Yeah.
12.
It says recommendations that the committee, 1, approves the commencement of a consultation process in respect of the revised Gambling Act, and 2, that the delegated authority to the Director of Growth and Regeneration in consultation with the chair of the Alcohol and Gambling Licensing Committee. Sorry, I've got a different report here. Yes, it does. I beg your
Hold
pardon.
on.
I was reading a different.
Excuse me. Can we stop talking across the table, please, and go through the chair? Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Hawlett.
I apologise for that. No, what I heard Simon to say was the phrase portfolio holder, and that doesn't appear in the recommendation. Now, I don't mind if the portfolio holder is referred to or not, but I just wanted to get it clear. Should the words portfolio holder for crime and prevention be in the recommendation, or shouldn't it? I'm just confused about what I'm being told, that's all.
Thanks, Councillor. I'll bring the monitoring officer in if I can, please, Clive. Thank you.
Yeah, the consultation would be with the chair of this committee, so I don't know if it was a slip of the tongue or whatever from Mr. Greensmith, but the recommendation is correct there in terms of the delegation sort.
Are you happy with that, Councillor? You happy? Right. Give. Lost me now. Right. Right. The chairman will open debate to the floor. Any questions, members, on the report? No questions? Councillor.
I think it's an excellent report, Chair. Doesn't need amending at all.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've read through it and it's a good report and all. Thank you. Right. Right. Then we will go to the vote. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Let's move the vote. On the mention that. That's no. Item 6, licensing performance report. This will be done by Joe. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I'll try and keep this brief, but obviously for the sake of the recording, I will go through some of the same information again, if that's all right. So the licensing performance report has been brought to both of tonight's committees for the financial year of April 2023 to March 2024. The same report has been brought to both committees, and again I will run through in some of the details that are relevant to this committee. The purpose of the report is to keep members up to date with the work of the licensing team that the licensing team has carried out and the processing performance. In total, 765 licenses were dealt with in this period, with an average process time of 9.01 days. And again, licensing does cover a large range of areas. So for tonight, for this committee, I will be looking at the alcohol and gambling side of it. I will go through again the team. So the team in this period was made up of one full-time equivalent business compliance officer, which is 2 part-time officers, one licensing enforcement officer and one licensing technician. The previous licensing enforcement officer left the council in December, so we were left with a temporary contractor for a short time, but that post has now been successfully recruited too. So of relevance to this committee is alcohol and entertainment licenses. So premises licenses dealt with by the team were up to 123 for this year, but the average processing time was lower than previous years. This is even when we take into account too long application processes, which were outside of the control of the team. The number of TENs, which are temporary event notices, was slightly higher. We put this down to, it was the King's coronation in part of the period being reported on. But the number of late temporary event notices, and a late temporary event notice is where an application is made within 10 days of the event. And they were higher, but again, we're putting that down to the King's coronation, which occurred in 2023. Licensing enforcement policy has been published online. And again, other points that were picked up on the licensing audit, a monthly report is being produced by the revenues team on debtors, and that is being actioned by the team. And again, I will say that a number of issues have been flagged with the software provider with regards to public access concerns, which is impacting on public registers. So at the moment, when public registers are being produced, they've been manually produced by the team as opposed to being pulled off from the database, which is what we are hoping will happen in the future. We've now got the new licensing enforcement officer in post, and he's already started looking at things like visiting licensed premises to check on compliance. And there were 3 licensing hearings in the period being reported on. And the 4th, which was a licence application, was withdrawn just before the committee hearing. And again, of relevance, safety advisory groups, a number of safety advisory groups have been held through the year as a result, in response to large events that have been run. So I ask that the committee notes the information in the report, and then if any questions, obviously happy to answer. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe, for the report. Chairman to invite a proposer and a second for the recommendations. Sorry, I can't get my phone recommendations. I've got to have false teeth. Yeah. I've proposed and Councillor Lumley was second. Thank you. You keep switching it off. Any questions, members? Councillor Atherton, thank you.
A quick question. As we voted early on from the 6 months to 12 months, because this is again separate from the first one, don't we have to do the same for this one?
Yes,
for the
we
reports.
do. Yeah, we do. Councillor Pritchett.
Chair, over the years, for a number of categories of applications, the time to process has come down considerably. Could you give a reason for that, please?
Again, the team are hard at work, obviously looking at, and it's trying to make sure we've got systems in place, I think, isn't it, to make sure that when something comes in, we are dealing with it. So we have got a great team. And you said, I'll praise them that they are processing everything as fast as they can do, but also it's getting systems in place to fine tune it, having the database. We are often at the mercy of what information is put in as well. And obviously we have looked at, we start the clock ticking when we get the full application. And I think historically that may not have occurred, which then enlarged that time period, which was outside the control of the team. So I think it's looking at the database, making sure we are accurately recording. But again, it's, you know, the team are pretty on the ball with trying to process as well.
What you're saying is you're slicker than 2018, more organised, right? You're not saying the checking required is less, or that you're just approving them without doing the check-in. You're
No,
saying you're better at doing the total.
Yeah, no, the same
Thank you.
processes. And I'd like to think, yeah, I mean, obviously, from team members, you know, have been in post for a number of years, and you know, the processes have been built on. We will get hiccups come in, I'm sure, but you know, we have got a good team who are looking and they're monitoring, and there's a lot of monitoring going on within the team to make sure no corners have been cut. It's very much all those processes have been followed to the correct degree.
Asked is it obviously stands out in the report.
Simon Green.
If I may just add, I think as well, the support that we've received from the committee and having extra staff now has certainly helped relieve some of the processing duties. Now we've got a proper full-time enforcement officer as well.
Thank you, Simon, for that. As chairman, I'd like to add on to the report on the subcommittees and change page 13.5.1 changes the report from 6 months to a year. Are we all in favour for that? Do you want to?
So formally, but it's the add to the recommendation.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair. So formally, you want to add to the recommendation that those reports are now made every 12 months rather than every 6. So if the second agrees to that, then.
Do you second it? Can you use your mic, please, Councillor Lumley?
Thank you, Chair.
No, we have to use it because it's being recorded. Thank you. If you don't use it, it's not getting recorded. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll second that.
Move the vote. All in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Item 7, urgent business, appointments of subcommittees and delegations. Sorry. I'll hand over to Clive. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As members are all present at the previous committee meeting in relation to the Taxi and General Licensing Committee, this is a very similar report. First, obviously, you need to express your consent for dealing with it, but just by way of background, this is about bringing certainty to our process, and my view is that we need to ensure that that's in place as soon as possible, and that therefore there's special reasons of urgency to deal with it tonight. If you're happy to do so, then I can carry on and present the report.
Members happy for him to present the report? No, thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Over to you, Clive.
Thank you, Chair. This report is all about just clarifying our process. It is similar to the report that was presented in relation to Taxi and General Licensing Committee and has 4 main headings. There is a very slight difference in relation to this committee simply because the Licensing Act 2003 has some very specific provisions in it. And the starting point is that the Act says that all of the powers under that Act come to this committee, but then it allows delegation to subcommittees, which it says must be 3 people, and to officers, although there are some things that can't be delegated to officers, which I'll refer to in a moment. Similarly to the last report, members will be familiar with the process that generally decisions by members on licences are made by subcommittees, simply because it enables quicker decision making and allows us to comply with statutory time limits. It's suggested that this continues, and this report is merely about ensuring that that's embedded in the process and that this committee has approved it, and that therefore when any application comes in which requires a hearing, we can just move to arranging that quickly, having consulted with the chair just to be certain that we want to have a subcommittee hearing it, and there's no reason why it should need to come back before the full committee. So it's anticipated that nothing much will actually change in practice. It's just making sure that members are happy with that, and assuming that in any particular case the chair or vice chair is happy for a subcommittee to be arranged in common with the previous practice, we will just contact members and make sure that suitable arrangements are made for a hearing to take place when it's convenient to all the members who may see it and to the applicant. This report has 2 appendices, and I'd like to draw your attention to Appendix A. And this picks up on a point that was made by Councillor Allnut in relation to the earlier committee, which obviously deals with different types of licensing matter, but it's the same principle that's concerned. The Licensing Act says that all the matters come to this committee and that they may delegate them. However, it does say that certain matters cannot be delegated to officers, and Appendix A just lists out all of those. And to summarise that, it basically means that when an application is made, whether it be for a premises licence to be granted, for a variation of a premises licence, or to consider whether action should be taken in relation to a licence, such as a review or a summary review, that those cannot be decided by members. They must be, by officers. They must be decided by the committee or a subcommittee, and that's the reason why those will have to be. The trigger for those being decided by members is when you get those objections in. So in some cases they're called objections, some are called representations. They amount to the same thing, and that means that the officer's delegation has ended. So to give a comparison, when a person applies for a licence and there are no issues, no problems, no representations made by the police, by any neighbour, etc., anybody living around the area who has a concern, the Act says they must be granted. So it makes sense for officers to carry on granting those. It's when an objection is received or representation comes in where that decision is required, and therefore anything that's on that list in Appendix A will automatically need to be a subject to a decision by members. The second appendix is again an extract from the current licensing committee procedure rules, and it's just suggested that we separate out what's currently in paragraphs 1.6 and 1.7. They'll go in a separate appendix, and I think the practical arrangement for that should be that appendix is numbered 2.1 and 2.2, just to stop confusion. That's it's just asking members to consider that they're happy with that. We can't change anything that's covered in Appendix A, but just whether members have any observations on what else is there, or any questions as to how we determine those matters in practice. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clive. Has any members got any questions to the monitoring officer on that? No?
Yes.
Sorry. Councillor, I thought you had one, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking desperately for a mention of entertainment, because as I understand it, alcohol and gambling includes entertainment.
Chair,
Should there be any references to entertainment in this block of
the
permissions?
There's no need to make express reference, simply because they all come under the heading of a premises licence. So that could apply to sale of alcohol. It could apply to entertainment, such as music. It could apply to indoor sporting events, showing of films, etc. So all of those come under the heading of a premises license. Some may contain a combination of the different types of activity that can be covered, and so the reference in the current licensing rules are just about determining reviews of premises license, etc., determining any matter relating to the functions that are required, because they're broad and they all fall in that same category. We don't treat an application for a license for entertainment different to an application for alcohol sales, so that they all fall within exactly the same process.
Are you okay with that? Right.
Does the word premises include outdoor events?
Yes,
It does.
can do,
Okay,
yeah.
well, that's fine. That's fine.
All members okay for that? Well, thanks for the report there, Clive. Is any urgent business? Any other business?
Sorry, Chair, I don't know if you formally wanted to move and take a vote on the report.
Oh, Rob. Go. Yeah, we'll remove the recommendation on to approve. I propose the recommendation. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Atherton to second it. All in favour? All in favour. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. Any other business, members? No. Just before you go, I'd like to thank myself as chairman, the licensing team, for the hard work they've done on these reports. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Simon. And can you also say thank you to the rest of the team? Thank you. It's been a hard one tonight. We've had to change this way. It's a new way we're doing it on the licensing team. And I'd just like to thank the members. Thank you very much. I closed the meeting at, what's that, 12 minutes to 8. Thank you. Thank you.